Hello, listeners. This is Freelance Friday with Vay Casey, a podcast all about freelancing through the experience and opinions of a current full-time freelancer. Today, I'm going to tackle a topic that seems to be coming up more frequently as I meet freelancers and agency personnel, which is people that either currently work for ad agencies or have previously worked for ad agencies in some capacity and are now doing freelance work, either moonlighting, which is kind of doing freelance work on the side at night. The term moonlighting, think about doing the work during the nighttime when the moon is out. I think you get the point. Anyway, there's a lot of people that have been leaving agency life to go freelance because they find that it works better for them, or they've been moonlighting for a while and it gets to a point where, like Katie last week, she talks about how she was moonlighting for a couple of months and eventually, very quickly for her, got to a point where she ended up quitting her job and going freelance full time. By the way, Katie, thanks so much for coming on the show. And listeners, if you haven't gotten a chance to go check out that episode from last week, I definitely recommend it. She's got a lot of great insights and she's got a really cool story. And she's definitely learned a lot along the way in her freelance journey, just over a little over 4 years for her. And she is a really badass designer. So if you're a small business and you're looking for design work, branding, Katie is is a great option for you. You can check her out at Drop Cap Design. Anyway, did not expect to be putting that little plug in there for her, but that's okay because she deserves it. She's great. Anyway, back to what I was saying. Coming out of agency life, working in an agency, I think there's a lot of things that you don't have to worry about there are things you don't have to worry about that as a freelancer you do have to worry about. And kind of the mindset that you have to take as a freelancer differs quite a bit. I think the biggest thing that I've noticed is that a lot of times I feel like that people that work in agencies typically are told more what to do and have a little bit less freedom creatively, and aren't bringing as many ideas to the table and are more just kind of executing ideas. Prime example would be if you're a video person or a photographer and you're on set and an agency has hired you as a freelancer. They're probably going to be looking for you to provide input and creative direction on the project itself, whereas a lot of times if you were working for the agency, they would already kind of say, here's the shot list we want to have, and we need you to get these different assets, yada, yada, so forth and so on, whatever. And so as a freelance, you've really got to be able to kind of get inside the mind of your client, and your job is to take kind of that responsibility off of their shoulders and really take the project and run with it. And so there's some questions that you can be asking to kind of try to figure out some qualifying questions that you should be asking to try to figure out what it is that your client is looking for, especially if you're a freelancer working for an agency. Even though you're working for that agency, they're still probably, if they're hiring a freelancer, then chances are they are busy, and especially if they have in-house creative staffing, creative teams, and they're still pulling in freelancers, then either the team they have isn't capable of executing the kind of stuff they're needing, which is part of it, but I think a lot of it is probably that they don't have the capacity for the work that they have, and they need extra hands. And so with that being said, there's not going to be as much time for them to spend getting the nitty gritty, the shot list, the creative briefs, all this stuff together quite as much as if they were handing it to somebody that's on their team. And so you got to be able to recognize what kind of position you're in, where you're at with the client, whether they're needing more input from you and it's something where you can kind of take the reins and run with it, or if you should be sitting back and waiting for them to kind of tell you what to do. I typically like to try to run with things a little bit more and be a part of the process, because I really do feel like it's a collaborative process, and I don't want to wait around for people to tell me what to do. And it's one of the reasons that I decided to be a freelancer in the first place. So I guess if you're in the position of thinking about leaving an agency and going freelance, or just thinking about going out on your own as a freelancer in general, a big question to ask yourself is, would you prefer to have other people telling you what to do, or are you more of a self-starter, a self-motivator, and able to kind of take the reins and run with things on your own? Because those are two major factors that come into play whenever, in whether you're going to be successful as a freelancer or not. Because if you can't take the initiative on your own and run with stuff, then you're not going to get very far, because as a freelancer, you are running your own business. And so some of the things that I like to ask whenever I'm working with clients are like, what is the project? What is the stuff that I'm shooting going to be used for? Where is it going? What is the story that's trying to be told? In the end, what is the final result that you're hoping to get from however this is used? Are you looking to sell more product? Are you looking to gain interest in a promotional deal? Are you looking to raise brand awareness? Are you looking to add validation to your brand via testimonials, where other people are telling stories about working with your brand or buying from you, or whatever it may be? Obviously, that stuff's going to vary a little bit from brand to brand, because different brands do different things. But in the end of it, there's just those different questions that you can kind of ask. And I'm in the show notes after we get done here at vacasey.com/freelance Friday. In the show notes, I'll list out a bunch of different questions that I would recommend asking, or kind of like my thought process whenever I'm dealing with clients. And I'll call those qualifying questions, to get an idea of what kind of a client they're going to be, because there are telltale signs. And if they don't know how to answer some of these questions, then sometimes it makes it hard to move forward and get much done, because you end up kind of guessing at things and hoping that something sticks, versus having an idea and a direction of knowing where you're going and being able to work off of that. Some things to think about whenever you're producing content, especially if you're a photographer or a videographer, probably most especially for photographers, is I know that for me personally, whenever I shoot, I tend to shoot a lot of images that are very similar. And so if you put them side by side, it more or less just kind of looks like the same shot. And in today's time, a lot of content is going to be used on social media. And so you need to be thinking about that end use of where that's going, and have that in mind, not only when you're shooting, when you're creating, but also when you're editing, whenever you're delivering things to the client, to be forward thinking and have that stuff in mind. And so whenever I go shoot something, if I know that it's mostly going to be used for social media stuff, they don't need like 20 different variations of basically the same shot. Like, take a few of them, pick one, pick two, let them have those, and that be it. Don't like overwhelm them with a whole bunch, because then all you're doing is creating decision paralysis. You're making the process harder for them whenever they're hiring you to make the process easier and to solve a problem for them. And if it's something that's going to be used a lot for social media, think about what that's going to look like in a grid on Instagram together. If I deliver 15 images, they need to have a decent enough amount of a variation that if those get posted pretty closely together on Instagram or on Facebook or wherever, it doesn't just look like the same image is being reused over and over. So think about that. And just listen, right? Like ask questions, listen, communicate, over communicate if you have to. I would much rather have somebody that over communicates with me than that doesn't communicate with me, that doesn't ask me questions. Ask the client if they have questions for you, because many times there might be stuff that they want to ask, but they're kind of unsure of. And so you opening that door for them to kind of like, oh, actually, yeah, I was kind of wondering about whatever. It gives you an opportunity to kind of like put some of their it helps you be able to put some of their fears to rest and any of their concerns. It helps you learn a little bit more about where their head is at and kind of what they're thinking about. And so it'll help give you a better idea of how to work with them, what kinds of stuff to deliver to them, what the process is going to look like, how to communicate with them, all of these different things. And so it's kind of like, if that's like a lot of the stuff I think of initially, like coming out of, if you're coming out of an agency life and going into a freelance life, that some of those things are going to have to be a bit of a mind shift. Just because it's probably not going to be typical the way you're thinking. I've seen this happen a few times with different people that I've worked with in some sort of capacity that worked in agencies and then left and started doing freelance work, and even doing freelance work for agencies. And then after a couple of go-arounds, ended up not really getting called back anymore. And they're kind of like wondering why. And I'm going like, well, I was on set with you watching what was happening and you needed direction the whole time. And like, they just want you to get the job done. They're bringing you in because you're the expert, right? Like as a freelancer, like for the most part, like you should be the expert in the thing you're doing. So act like it. Be confident, take ownership of the stuff. And I mean, in the end, like do the best you can, deliver the quality of product that you advertise and that you market you can deliver. Because whenever somebody hires you, that's what they're looking for, is because they're hiring you for the thing that you have shown that you can already do. So do that thing and be confident in that, because that's why they're hiring you. I guess that's all I really have to say for this today. Hopefully that made sense, and that you got something out of that. We're, I think, close to 20 episodes in. I don't remember what episode number this is, but I know we're getting close to 20. It's kind of a cool feeling. Thanks so much to those of you who have listened through the whole process and have been here. I know some of the episodes are really short, like this one is probably going to be. Some of them have been really long, the interviews, and it's kind of all over the place. Thanks for sticking with me as I try to get all this kind of figured out. Any input you can give me on what your preference is as far as lengthwise, as far as what kind of content you want to have, is going to be helpful, because really I want the show to be more about you and less about me. And it to be something that's helpful for you in your journey in answering any questions you have, solving any problems, or maybe it's just you want to get somebody else's opinion on something. Anyway, I love talking about this stuff. Freelance life and just creative stuff in general really fascinates me, and I enjoy talking to other people about it and meeting new people. So if you'd like to talk, please drop me a line. Send me an email at hi@vaycasey.com. You can also find me on all the social media channels at Vaycasey. It's VAYCASEY. Like I said, I'll have notes for you on today's episode at vaycasey.com/freelance Friday. And this is your first time to check out an episode, I would suggest you go back and check out some of the other ones. We've got some really great interviews from a few different agency personnel from different agencies, as well as a few different freelancers. A couple of weeks ago, we had on Jonathan Bander, a CPA based in New York, who broke down a lot of stuff talking about different business structures and taxes and stuff like this to help me and others like me understand that world, because I have a hard time understanding a lot of that stuff sometimes because it's so outside of the realm of what I do. And so it's nice to have experts and people to talk about that stuff and to kind of tear down walls that make it hard to see what that stuff is. So if you've got questions like that, relating to either the creative side of things or even the business side of things that may be outside my realm of expertise, I'll do what I can to get experts on the show to be able to talk into that stuff and to answer your questions. Likewise, if you have anybody that you think would be a good person for me to have on the show for an interview, please let me know that as well, and I'll do what I can to get them on. I guess last thing, wrapping it up, if you have found this episode helpful or the show at all, please share it with other people. It would also be really, really helpful for you to leave me a honest and positive rating and review on iTunes or wherever you've found this podcast. Thanks so much for sticking with me in all my rambling. I really appreciate it, and I'll see you next week. Freelance Friday is a VayCasey production. VayCasey is a full-service video production company based in Dallas, Texas. VayCasey, big video production value, freelance agility and scale.